This is really interesting that Jeff Bezos, who hasn't sold stock in Amazon for most of the time he's run Amazon, which is why he's one of the richest men in the world, because it's the value of his stock that gets him that way, is now selling stock to own a different enterprise.
Yeah, and I think that kind of points to maybe, Blue Origin truly is his, even more than Amazon, is like his absolute kind of passion project. And really, he's in this unique position, even more so than Musk, who's a very rich man, even more so than Branson, to basically go, you know what, I want complete control over this. And the way you do that is not having outside investors and also not necessarily chasing revenue right at the start.
And in the case of Branson and Musk, they've also accumulated their fortunes in with all three characters. They've accumulated their fortunes in very different ways. Bezos, as you mentioned, he started the hedge fund business, but he made his money at Amazon by owning and keeping his Amazon shares. Elon Musk selling shares in money-losing businesses long before they had any hope of success, whether it was Tesla or SpaceX or PayPal, even when he worked there. That was not yet a profitable business when he got out. And so the accumulated losses for all those businesses is enormous. And Branson has just sort of sold off pieces of businesses for when he had to for regulatory reasons, like with Virgin America or other things. But it does seem to follow their philosophy of bringing outside contributors to the businesses and Bezos going it alone.
Yeah, and I think part of that is simply like Bezos is in a better position than anyone else to fund it himself. I mean, as you pointed out, Amazon stock on an absolute tear. So basically, even though he's selling $1 billion worth of stock, that's sort of a relatively small proportion of his holdings. I think. Well,
Tesla stock until recently was on a tear as well, and Musk was certainly selling a lot of shares on the way up.
No, and well, the interesting thing there is what Musk is doing is pledging a lot of Tesla shares. And when we first started looking at this story, we're like, is he pledging shares to support SpaceX? And actually, he was using the shares to support more Solar City before he brought it into Tesla. So it's kind of incredible if you think SpaceX, just because they've managed to build this business, is not necessarily kind of a sinkhole for money, apart from perhaps for outside investors.
It does also, I mean, maybe it's my obsession as a former hedge fund manager, but it also reduces the flow to the stock if you've locked up shares and you're not loaning up to short sellers, which raises their cost of short selling, but also can suddenly reduce the float and suddenly cause someone to have to cover.
Well, there you go. That's getting very technical for me. But
I'm just, it's with the huge short interest in Tesla, someone's getting paid just to hold the stock. We don't know if Musk is getting paid or not. He hasn't said anything about it, but it's an interesting thing. How far along are these guys in their efforts? It seems that they're all making really great progress in their efforts.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, SpaceX pretty much has been kind of an operational business for the last 10 years at least. And Blue Origin is making a lot of progress, but what it's not doing is trying to get customers yet. And so maybe next year they might send tourists up to space if they can get to that stage. But really, SpaceX is kind of definitely the leader in terms of trying to commercialize this. And out of choice, Blue Origin is pretty much like in stealth mode and effectively just kind of doing its own thing.